Roll of whoever does today's meeting.
Yeah, I'll call the roll.
Are you prepared?
Should I say who I am?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hi, I am Katie. I'm the new planning and zoning official. I am Erin's replacement. I'm very happy to be here.
Hi, Katie.
Hello. Alan Kenter.
I'm here. I just don't have a camera.
That's
Well, I have
okay.
one, but it's broken.
We believe that you are here. Skip,
I'm here.
Ryan,
Here.
Joe,
Here.
Karen is absent, I believe. So we do have a quorum. I don't know what our official
Okay.
FOIA statement is.
Well, I usually make that,
Okay.
but thank you for calling a roll. We're called to order at 6 o'clock. And the Freedom of Information Statement is in conjunction and is compliant with is published on the Folly Beach calendar. So the public has been notified that the meeting is taking place. And we don't have previous minutes, I understand, from November. Those will follow when appropriate. They are not completed. And Erin, I'll turn it over to you for personal appearances. Guess there's really none, other than we do have our new zoning administrator, but technically is she the resilience officer now?
She's
Is that
our
her?
land use and environmental planner.
Yep.
And she will be the staff liaison for the board.
Well, welcome, Katie. And those of you that haven't had an opportunity to review Katie's resume or give her a call and introduce yourselves, she is a highly qualified and most, I think, overqualified in terms of being better than all of us. So puts us
Thank
at a
you.
little bit of a disadvantage. Thank you, Katie, for coming on board.
Thank you so much.
I don't show in my record any unfinished business from the last meeting.
Yes, sir.
Then we'll move right on to new business, which all three items are centered around the Folly River Inn at 87 Center Street, for which I believe Mr. Buck wants to recuse himself.
Yep, I'd like to recuse myself.
We're going to run right through conceptual, preliminary, and final review for this. Is that correct, Aaron?
Yes, sir. And Katie is ready with her full zoning review.
Yep. Yep,
Okay.
so for the zoning compliance for 87 Center Street, from the site plan that was provided, it looks like all of the setbacks are met, including that OCRM critical line setback and the access easement setback. The height is not increasing, so we don't have to worry about that overall height. Lot coverage is at right under 25% of the allowed 50%, so we are good there. There's no maximum heated square footage that's applicable because it's in the downtown commercial district. The only questions that I had that I couldn't tell from the site plan was the parking, to make sure that no parking was reduced with that enclosure of the bottom for whatever food service is going on underneath. We just need to make sure that we're not eliminating any of that because that would increase the nonconformity. I don't think that hinges on DRB approval, but just so you know, for zoning purposes going forward, I know that we're not discussing, or you wish to not discuss the signage today.
Yep.
We do have a 20 square foot maximum on those signs, so it might be a smidge too big, but all of those measurements weren't provided for this DRB meeting. And then with the enclosure of the ground space, we will just need to meet all flood requirements. From a zoning standpoint, it's fine, but you'll probably need a new elevation certificate, these design certs. But Eric and I will go through that when you have your permitting process.
Yep.
Other than that, it looks like the project meets all of the zoning requirements.
Okay, relative to the first agenda item then under new business, the conceptual review, can I have a motion that we consider the conceptual review?
Should we do accelerated?
Well, we can jump right through. Well, that's a good question.
So,
I've
Katie,
never seen them
So-
broken out like this, so I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
It is a little different.
So with the scope of work that Ryan presented, and I'll kind of go through that just so we're all on the same page. It's a partial new front facade with the deck area staying the same, enclosing the ground floor space with CMU block with impact rated garage doors and storefront. The new steel stair structure, which I submitted a photo to you guys this morning for review. Enclose the existing interior stair area, new balconies on the rear of the building, new storage space on the back of the building, and a new handicap chair lift. So while looking at the zoning code in chapter 33, it seemed like a smidge too much of work for an accelerated review. So I just kind of wanted to break it down so you as a board could evaluate if, you know, we wanted to stop at any point or if you needed any information that you guys had the ability to. It is up to you as a board if you want to breeze through it or not.
Well, I guess the greater question is the three items go from conceptual, preliminary to final, and we really don't have accelerated in here as a step, which I think Alan brought out that we normally do an accelerated review process if we're interested in doing that. Alan, do we want to amend the new business schedule to include or to add an accelerated review? Or Aaron, is that appropriate?
I don't know if it can work, but yeah, I mean, we could just look at it all at the same time in totality under accelerated, in the same manner as we would compartmentally.
So if you guys don't mind, accelerated review is for relatively minor things. If you want to approve all three levels tonight, you certainly can, but
Oh, okay, that makes
secret would
sense.
be to give all three, just because accelerated review is usually for new doors or new siding.
Yeah.
This is,
Yep,
you know, an
yep.
enclosure.
I have the code up if you wanted me to like break that down if you want to know, or if like what's the difference between conceptual, preliminary, and final, or I don't care if you guys want to know that information more or whatever.
I don't know that we've seen the detailed project relative to each of these three things. I kind of thought that it was more related to the stairwell, which we got the pictures for and all that. I didn't really have an appreciation that there were these other additional additions being added. So we haven't received, unless you've sent them out, I haven't really received any diagrams or.
So that was the
I
additional side.
I haven't seen the scope of work. I'm not sure what document you're referring to. I think it's kind of aligns with Skip's comment.
I see what you're saying now, on page A201. Yeah, I had missed that, proposed front elevation. So I see what you're saying.
Right.
It's a much more drastic change.
Yeah, and
So what, the
Katie
point
sent these
is,
things over to you guys.
yeah, that makes sense. We might stop somewhere along the way if we can't reach an agreement. So
Yeah.
it does make sense to break
And
it down.
I apologize for not including that full scope of work in my email to you guys on Friday.
Well, what can we do today so that Ryan can move forward with the appropriate step in this particular process?
So the documents he submitted that Kate emailed on Friday have all of these things, and we can go print another copy for you guys.
I'm sure I've got it here, I just got to do
Yeah,
it.
if the scale's all right.
I was traveling Friday and I apologize. I might have
That's okay.
missed
So for conceptual review, we just need to look at the schematic site plan, looking at the footprint and the basic dimensions, which is that first page. And then the basic sketch elevations, not really getting too much into aesthetics, etc. Just, that would be just the concepts. So if everyone is okay with that, we would vote for that. Then it would move to the preliminary review documentation. So that's the more detailed site plan, looking at encroachments or whatever for driveways, parking, sidewalks, any trees that would be disturbed. This is an existing structure. Building elevations, a panoramic photo, but I think we know what this looks like. And then just a contextual model showing the new building and the existing environment, which was that staircase. And then showing stucco, but we're not going to get into the full colors and stuff. So I guess, Ryan, this question is to you, are you wanting to get fully permitted with DRB approval and then come back and try to do signs at a later date?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was hoping I could come back for signage and colors at a later date.
And so the package,
Yeah,
that
I see
went
it
out
now.
has the required material for each level of review.
Mm-hmm.
We just broke it down so you guys could vote at each step, because it was a little too much to put in accelerated review. So the required submittals are all here for each stage.
Yeah, you have everything that you guys need. I just didn't know if anyone
Well,
Would-
actually, without a statement of work that explains what each of these diagrams are, or the scope of what goes in, you mentioned an enclosure around, I guess, the new lift, Chair. I can't. I'm
Maybe
not a-
we just need to run over what
And that is what
the
typically
intention
happens.
of the renovations and or additions are.
Yeah, and that's what Mr. Buck is here for, like
To answer
our
those
standard
questions.
applicant. He's gonna go through and talk about what he's proposing and show you it on the drawings.
Okay, so, motion for, the first part, whatever the first thing on the agenda is,
Conceptual review.
conceptual review.
I'll second it. You want to have discussion? Joe, anybody have specific
Yeah, I
discussion?
mean, do we get a scope of work, or do we, I mean, I'm not sure.
So Mr. Buck is gonna go through and explain his proposed scope of work. You know,
Okay.
normally when folks appear before the ZRB, they walk through their presentation, and that's what he's here for tonight and why he's recused himself.
Right, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we can, on paper, break this down in 3 steps, but frankly, this is just an accelerated review. I mean, it's what we're doing. So, but I don't have any information right now, other than these drawings.
Why don't we let Ryan explain, do you want to,
Sure.
you introduce yourself for the record?
Yep.
And then we'll press on. Let's let him walk through the diagrams that he's done here, which hopefully will explain a little bit of the scope of work. Does that make sense? Okay, go ahead, Ryan.
Okay, so Ryan Buck, 87 Center Street. I don't know if we want to maybe just go page by page, if that makes sense, and start on page 201, A201. That's the front elevation of the building. The left elevation is what's existing. The right elevation is what we're proposing. Basically, what we're doing is leaving the decks as is. We're taking the 4 small windows on the front elevation, and we're replacing those with storefront glass. The ground floor, we're enclosing and giving that 2 roll-up garage doors that are glass. And we're converting the gable construction to a parapet wall that'll have future signage. And there will be kind of a small peak of the steel staircase, very similar to the one that we did at 106 East Hudson. So that kind of covers the front elevation.
So where the 4 windows are on the front that are gonna be replaced in this proposal with the storefront,
Yes, sir.
is that interior space? Is that breezeway? What?
It's interior heated space.
Okay, so those are gonna be floor to ceiling windows?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's the only change to the front other than the enclosure below?
Yep.
The parapet wall.
And the gable is being converted to a parapet wall.
Right, okay.
Okay, any other questions on the conceptual review here?
Can we get Ryan to run through the project, and then we can
Yeah,
talk about the first part and, you know, the part number 1, conceptual work, and
okay.
then vote on that.
Well-
If we're not gonna do the accelerated and talk about everything at the same time, you know, we should probably just address the project in that manner in the 3 chunks, right?
I think that was the intent when you put together the agenda, right, Aaron?
Right. So we would just vote on the concept, so footprint and general elevations, and then get into that preliminary review, looking more at roof lines and finished flooring, cladding material, etc., with a better picture of what building would go and look like, and then that final review looks at floor plans, landscapes drawn, construction details, wall sections. So that would be looking more at like the stucco and the types of windows and et cetera at that final.
So in the elevation 202B, okay,
Yes, sir.
the far right-hand side, that shed,
Yep.
is that new or is that existing?
So that
Let him run through the project and tell him let him tell us what he's thinking about doing. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Walk through these.
Brian, would you do that?
Yeah, do you want to go page by page, Alan, or do you want me to just give like a brief rundown?
Well, let's do, if I could ask you to do page by page, so we're all looking at the same diagram. And if we have any questions that come out of that, we can pitch right past it or not. Can you start with that? Can
Yep.
Let's just do A100 and tell us what that's telling
Yeah,
us.
show it your site plan.
Okay, so yeah, if we want to go to the site plan, so the only footprint changes are the steel staircase being, built outbound of the building. There is on the rear of the building, there's a storage space, a single story, 1-story storage space that's being added on the back, has a shed roof on it. And then there's a handicap lift next to it. That's the only footprint changes.
And the lift is new,
So,
right? There's not any kind
so,
of
so,
handicap thing.
so Ryan, A100 is as it exists now.
A100 is as it exists with the red clouds showing what's changed. Joe, or do you see the red clouds?
I do. So the stuff in the red cloud, is that in the proposed?
That's correct. That's correct.
All right, so where is the shed in the,
On the rear of away from Center Street on the back of the building, you see where it's got the angled wall?
In the lift area, it's right next to the lift area there, Joe, where you put in a manual lift. Or a handicap lift.
Everything inside the red circles is new.
That's correct.
Those are the changes, inside the red circle.
okay, so the shed, I guess that's what I'm confused. You said the shed is being added.
Shed roof, it's just a storage room tacked onto the first floor, ground floor only with a shed roof.
So is
That's
it
right.
in a red cloud on A100?
Yep.
Okay, I guess that's what I'm not following then.
You can see it better from A204 to A204A when we get to
Oh,
that
well,
page.
I'm sorry, I've got it backwards in my mind.
No worries.
I got it, okay.
Can I
Got it.
suggest that we go to A202B next?
Yep.
Which should be
Okay.
that proposed overall elevation.
Yeah, so A202B, guys, if you want to go to that.
Yep.
So A202B shows the ground floor that's going to be enclosed with CMU block, and it will be stuccoed. And you'll see there's some roll-up garage doors with some storefront glass. And that, Joe, shows you where that shed structure, or building addition with the shed roof is on the back of the building.
Right.
And then you'll see there's the steel stair that's being added outbound to the building. And you'll see beyond the steel stair, it used to be open because there was a staircase there. You'll see where that was filled in with siding to match the existing. And that's
Okay.
that's A202B.
So all those, what do you call them? Aluminum windows, bar counter and all that, they're adding that down to the enclosed space, so that'll be part of the openings to that enclosed space?
Yes,
Well.
that's correct. Yeah.
They didn't supply existing, I guess this would be north elevation, they call it an overall elevation.
So the existing left and right elevations, as well as the rear and front elevations, are further down in the package. That I think Ryan we just talked about the
They call it right
A20.
on-
Mhm.
A202,
What
Alan.
they do is the right elevation. Yeah, so Joe, it's just strangely ordered. Existing
Yeah,
elevation is A202.
Right.
Proposed right elevation is called proposed overall elevation.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
It's because it didn't include the addition on the back.
Yeah,
That's why.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's going on there, but. So you can disregard A202B, it's redundant, right? Except it's got
A202B, Alan, shows the addition on the back. A202A did not fit the entire addition off the back.
okay.
Okay, so you already did A201, that showed the front elevation. We talked about your side, your parapet wall, those additional windows, and your garage doors.
Yep.
Do you want to go to the rear
Yep.
elevation? So that's A203.
Yep. So on the rear of the building, guys, you'll see where there's been 2 decks that were added with sliding doors, which will match the existing fenestration on the building. And there's a handicap lift, and you can see that storage building below that'll have stuccoed walls on the CMU block.
And same roof, like a metal roof or something?
That's right. Yeah, it would be a metal standing seam metal roof to match the existing roof.
So the deck, looking for a plan view of that, is that illustrated in a plan view anywhere?
I don't think there's the plan view is just the A100, isn't it?
Yeah, the site plan is A100.
I don't see any other plan.
What would you guys request from a DRB standpoint to further, what information do you guys need to know about the deck?
Well, I mean, I guess as I look at it, I can't tell if there's I'm not sure what Ryan meant when he said that would match the existing
So,
exterior, on those new decks.
so like the railings, Joe, would match the existing railings that are on the building.
Right.
The doors that come out of the deck would be the same manufacturer and color as the existing. The siding's not really being.
Okay, so it's all the finishes.
Yes, sir.
The deck comes out how far?
It comes out about 6 feet.
On the proposed right elevation, they're shown without any structural support. I can't imagine they're cantilevered that far. I think they just, somewhere else I think I saw them with posts.
Yeah, they're gonna have posts under them.
Proposed left elevation,
Yeah, they'll have posts supporting them, Alan. Yeah, they did not draw columns holding those decks up for whatever reason on that elevation. They show it on the rear, but not on the side for whatever reason.
I think they might be a slightly different size on the proposed left elevation. See how there are 3 squares on that one and 2 on the proposed right elevation? Oh no, maybe they got chunked off by the cut line, by an opaque fill through there.
Yeah.
On the right where they chopped off the shed.
Yeah, I think that's what happened.
Yeah.
Is the material?
Are
of the
they
decking
going
was-
to?
Yes.
Those posts are going to come down inside onto your storage roof, aren't they?
Yeah, they're gonna actually be supported by those walls.
Oh, so the storage room footprint is the width of the deck?
It's the width of the deck. The decks are not as deep as the storage room.
Okay. Yeah, I think they're a little confused because they show them going the whole way across the back on the proposed rear elevation. but they don't have anything coming to the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
But it doesn't really matter. I mean, those decks on the back of the building, we can't really see them. They're sticking off totally independently of the roof's not coming out over them or
Right.
anything, so. I mean, regardless of their width, they're not going to have a very different, they're not going to have any visual impact anyway, because you'll never be able to see them.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And they're just basically wrapping around and matching.
That's right.
Those columns are like round, are they PVC filled with concrete or something? Or I can't remember what they are. I remember them being
I don't
pretty
believe.
different.
Yeah, they are different. I don't believe they're filled with concrete, Alan, but they are a PVC round column of sorts.
Okay.
So
And then the
A2.
other,
Yep.
hmm?
Go ahead, Alan.
Right.
Good, right.
I was just saying, if we're moving forward, A204 is the existing left elevation. A204A is the proposed elevation.
That's where there's no structural support underneath.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I just figured out why we can't find the stuff. I don't know, I assume this is 202B is first. It goes 100, 202B, 201, 203, 204, 204A, and then back to 202 and 202A. I think that's why we're getting confused in terms of going through the stuff, because the order's jumbled up in the PDF.
Agreed.
Well, fortunately, there's only eight of them to get jumbled up. If there was 20, we'd have a real problem.
I should have printed them out.
Yeah, me too. Okay. So Katie, does that take us all the way through?
So right now, we are in the discussion phase of our motion for conceptual review. So we need to take a vote on conceptual review.
Are there any more questions for discussion on the conceptual review, Alan or Joe?
We can obviously do more discussion for prelim and final.
Sure.
but-
I'm just wondering if there's
Yeah.
anything else you want to do under.
I don't have
conceptual.
anything for conceptual.
No, not me neither. I am curious though, I mean, it's just, the CMU block enclosure, and this is not our purview, but I'm just curious, how does that meet the whole, is it like breakaway construction with the CMUs, or?
No, it's. Go ahead, Alan.
I'm sorry?
Were you about
How
to
do
say?
you meet the flood requirements with the CMU enclosure? I'm just curious.
Oh, that's a tricky thing. Under BFE, you masonry above 4 feet can't be breakaway because it can't be taller than 4 feet and be unreinforced. So theoretically, you could have a 4-foot tall breakaway wall, but you'd have a code conflict in other areas. So in order to build a wall in a V zone, a masonry wall, you address wave deflection, refraction, and basically the structural engineer just V-zone certifies it, that it won't harm buildings around it or knock the building over when it applies its lateral force as a result of hydrostatic, horizontal hydrostatic pressure.
I'm gonna throw a kink in here. Since this is commercial space below BFE, that is fine, but it also needs to be flood-proofed, but it also needs to meet the V-zone requirements. This is something that Eric brought up. So it needs to fit both. It might be a tricky design. Ultimately, with this being commercial space, we don't want water to get into it, but it needs to meet the V-zone design standards. That's not really a DRB problem, but it might come back that this design might change in
Maybe
the future.
substantially, you know?
Yeah, I think he was just asking out of curiosity. I don't,
Yeah, well, I mean, you answered my question. It's complicated and
Yeah.
this might not, be what sticks.
and I fell asleep during my own answer, so that was
Yeah.
more than I should have said.
All right,
Anyway, I understood the gist of your answer.
so do we want to go ahead and make a motion to approve conceptual review, and then we can go ahead and see if there's any additional questions in the preliminary review? Katie?
Yep, so we have a motion and a second for conceptual review.
Okay,
If we're done with discussion, we can take a vote.
I think we are.
Okay. Alan?
Yes,
Skip?
Yes.
Ryan is recusing himself from the vote. Joe?
Yes.
Okay. Conceptual review has been approved.
motion for preliminary?
Second. Okay, discussion? Katie, what additional facets in the preliminary review does Ryan need to go over, do you think?
So for preliminary, we are looking at, it's the cleaning lady, she'll come in.
Oh, okay.
We are looking at those patios, the decks that we just had great discussion on, any materials, roof elevations, etc., from a building elevation standpoint. So this is where we get into those specifics. And then basically a photograph of the site so we know what it looks like, though I think we know what it looks like. And just that modeling. So it's looking at the prelim, more than the concept, but not the final. If there's anything that sticks out that you want additional information on, if you want Mr. Buck to come back and look and present to you, this would be a time. Or if you think preliminary, he can move forward, go start that process. You do have the ability as a board to approve portions or conditionally approve portions of the project. So if there's one thing that's really sticking out, you guys have that ability.
Well, I think Ryan pretty much addressed the materials and no changes in windows and doors and all those kinds of things. Do you have additional questions, Joe or Alan? I'm not smart enough to know the questions. I'm not a builder, but.
Well, I think, looking at the totality or the different portions of the work, the enclosure down the left side, if you're standing on the street, is just basically a stucco wall. That's relatively innocuous, and the staircase is, relatively simple and pretty much matches what's there. The stucco enclosure that's behind is you know, just that, just a protuberance. Actually, the fact that the decks are going to be over it kind of hides it if you're out in the water looking back at it. But the important, I mean, the thing that seems to need some discussion is the relationship between the front, the new front, or that's where my question is, the relationship between the new front facade and the nature of what the old part is, because they're pretty different. You know what I'm saying? That would be my question: is how do those two things kind of work together?
I mean, how are they tied in, Alan? What, I mean, I'm not sure I understand your question. How do they?
They're vastly different in character. I'm asking Ryan. The storefront infill of the first floor and the second floor are
Very different appearance.
and punched openings and walls with siding.
Right.
So Alan, I think our thought was the building kind of looks very residential, and we wanted to make it have a little bit more of a commercial appearance. So that was the reasoning behind the changes. Those windows on the front elevation are really, really small. They don't give you any kind of a view out of those windows. There's an amazing view onto the river from inside those spaces. Overall the building was just it just looked very residential to us. So we wanted it to have a presence of a commercial building that's on Center Street, and an inviting commercial building on Center Street. So that was largely the reason behind the windows. The garage doors at the ground floor, those are going to be able to open up and serve as the space below, which we think is going to give it a really nice feel. The decks stay the same, the columns, the rails, everything about the decks does not change. And then we wanted a place to be able to put signage that we'll come back for at a later date, but that's just the parapet wall is for the purpose of a future sign.
Yeah, I think we somehow missed those windows, when I drove by there after they went in, I called Rick and asked him if they had changed the size of those windows, and he said they hadn't. So somehow we just missed the fact that they're tiny.
They're tiny, yeah. It's crazy almost how
I think
tiny.
what we did was when we saw them on the front elevation, they were covered by a Bermuda shutter.
That makes them look bigger, right?
Yeah. I think it's a good idea opening that up. I probably have a little bit of a geometry problem with the width of the parapet wall. I don't know.
My input on these Florida ceiling windows is that I understand and can appreciate and think it's a good idea to open those windows up more. I'm not sure that flat commercial look of, it kind of looks like the backside of a room at the Tides or something. And that facing Center Street, I'm not sure is all that appealing, looking right into somebody's room, okay? And that, as opposed to a bigger but more traditional window look, okay? And I agree with you, Alan, the size of that signage parapet wall thing is pretty significant.
What was the rationale behind the extension of the parapet wall, since the sign can't be that big anyway?
So the existing front elevation, as you can see, just has a pretty simple gable design, and that to us gives it a very residential feel. So you can see the parapet wall tries to get rid of the gable or disguise the gable. If you make it smaller, I'm not sure how the gable will relate to it, because that is the plane of the building back there. So we were trying to get rid of the gable is what we were trying to do. Kind of like the Avocet buildings. If you guys drive by the Avocet buildings, they have a multiple parapet wall design. That's kind of the closest thing I could, see to it.
Isn't that going to look quite tacked on and out of character with the building unless you return it down the sides or something? Isn't it just going to be a large rectangle attached? I mean, you're going to cut the roof overhang back, right?
Right, yeah. So the main roof would die into the rear of this. If you look at the proposed right elevation, Alan, on A202A, you can see from the side what it's going to look like. I don't believe it's going to really impact the side angles at all.
It doesn't show it, does it?
Yeah, it does.
Oh, they're saying they're not even showing they're showing it out at the edge of the roof overhang. They're not showing it as a parapet wall.
Yeah, I mean, a parapet, in concept, I guess you could say.
Oh, so you're saying it's an enclosure, it's a rectangular enclosure of the soffit at like the barge rafter.
Right, right.
I've never seen that before.
I guess one of the things that I'm not 100% comfortable with is the appearance of the front facade changing that dramatically I'm not sure it fits the character of a lot of, while geometrically it may, the character of the buildings there, I don't know, line up with that on Center Street. And also, now the front of the building looks completely different than the other three sides. And while the other three sides don't face Center Street, they are still in clear view. I think that's something to think about.
Did they model this by any chance? Do you know?
Like a 3D model?
Yeah, the old one. I don't remember.
I don't believe they did.
I mean, do you think that the storefront, wall to wall and floor to ceiling is imperative, or could you do the same thing with fixed doors the whole way across?
Yeah, I think the fixed doors would still give it that, residential look that we were hoping to get somewhat away from, other than the existing balconies that have doors. If you guys want to limit the size of the glass, we could probably look at doing that. I don't know that it's going to greatly, change the appearance to, delete 20% of the glazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little, in my mind, Ryan, a little more than that, in that the character of the front of the building is changed and is at odds even with the other parts of the front facade as well as the other three sides.
Don't you think it's going to be quite odd having commercial storefront parapet facade on a building that is supposed to be or that was, you know, looks like it was kind of modeled after, I mean, their intention was to model it after what was the building next to the pier? I can't remember. Anyway.
So yeah, they call it a lodge, and we kind of felt like a lodge architecture really belongs in Colorado or Utah or Montana. We didn't really feel like the lodge is what they were calling it was a great fit for Center Street.
So I
They
think,
tried to copy the restaurant that was out over the water next to the pier.
It's the Atlantic House, it's modeled directly on the Atlantic House.
right, I mean, I think the word lodge, you could apply a lot of words to this and call it, instead of different tone, it's cottage, seaside cottage look, just as easily as lodge, so that's just a choice of word.
That was then and this is now. I mean, that was an approved, we approved that when it was built, so,
Right, I know, I mean, but
yeah.
that's what I'm saying, I mean, that's, we're talking about appearance, not what word we chose.
Exactly. Exactly.
The
I don't
building,
know that it matches the Atlantic House as much as that might have been their original intention, but then, you know, it changed. Especially with some things like those round columns and stuff, which are more modernish.
yeah, I think the appearance now, everybody, is that it's kind of a sleepy, residential almost looking building, when really it's on Center Street and we've got the commercial storefront at the ground floor. We thought it would look nice to carry it up and just modernize the building to some extent, you know? That was kind of the thought.
I just Googled the Atlantic House to refresh my memory about what it looked like. It's actually relatively the roof is geometrically similar, but some of the other stuff doesn't match, but a picture came up of what you're talking about. I lost it. Let me go back. It is a parapet. It's a rectangular parapet going the whole way across, roof 2 stories off the ground with a gable running into the back. It's called the Folly Drug Sundries. Oh, it's the old corner store. This is interesting. I'm going to take a picture of it and text it to you. Okay, I'm almost finished. Here it comes. Sorry, Katie, I don't have your phone number.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah, check that out. That's interesting.
Did you texted it to me, Alan?
Yeah, I texted it to everybody. Let me see if it's still going through.
Skip's got it.
I mean, it's wild looking.
You sent a picture of the Atlantic House? Is that what it was, Alan?
No, it's the Ollie Rug Sundries building from what looks like 1940 maybe, when it still had the corner entrance. it has a massive parapet sticking up from as an extension of the width of the building
I see it.
with a gable behind it.
I'm assuming it's this,
Okay.
with the gables
Yeah.
around here.
Yeah, that's very similar.
Well, I think that's at the facade. I think what you're drawing is
Did you get better?
purported out at the edge of the roof overhang, so 16 inches out or 12 inches out or something. It's but yeah, I mean, they've got a bank of windows there asymmetrically underneath it that's just, what, 5 or 6 windows?
Just funky.
That's Holly.
I mean, one thing about this building is it has elements in it that turn the corner and tie it together. That's my only worry about the facade-ish nature of the change, is that it doesn't match anything on the sides. It's just a facadist applique over the front of the building. Which I'm not necessarily saying that that's a bad thing. I think in order to pull it off, you might want to differentiate even further and make sure that nothing about that entire front facade matches the rest of the building.
So we'd like to, so we'd like to come back and talk about colors and signage, and I think that's, we do want to give, the front a splash of color, because, the building is kind of a gray, color, so we haven't really worked out the details yet, but we did want to find an appropriate color and signage that would kind of tie it all in and make the, the front elevation, give it some life. Whereas the rest of the building kind of, blends in. It's kind of a neutral gray. There's a big tree line that separates us from the boat landing. That's never going to change. That tree line's always going to be there. So you really don't see the right elevation. The left elevation is mostly covered with buildings, existing buildings.
What if you did this front facade in Galvy to match your new stair? And just make the entire front facade, I mean, I say Galvy, but you know what I mean? Make the whole thing metal.
I think that's definitely a possibility, Alan.
Because then it would be totally different. I think tying it in to different parts of the rest of the building might be, it would almost look like, oh, they found some storefronts, at Lowe's on the rack and used it because they ran out of the other windows. You know what I mean? Kind of. Because it would be so one-off. But if the whole facade was like a sculptural element, it might be cool. Or that place in LA, the buildings, I can't remember where it is, but the building's totally and completely simple, and the entire front of the building is a huge pair of binoculars. Like 3 stories. They didn't try to match, color or texture.
Yeah, I mean, when we come back with colors, we could show it as a galvanized facade looking color, or we could give it some color.
I mean, you got the aluminum storefront and the aluminum roll-up doors. They would probably match, right?
That's right. We were thinking dark bronze on that initially.
Oh, okay.
So what are you, what additional information are you guys needing for preliminary review? Is this enough for preliminary review and then Mr. Buck comes back with more info for final review?
It is for me, but I'm not as detailed as Alan and Joe are, so what do you guys think?
What, so in this level of the review, what are we approving or not approving?
Aaron, can you help?
You're approving the general elevations of the building, the shape, the size, the location of the building, his design, concept, not approving necessarily the final materials or finishes.
So in granting approval, at this point, we'd be approving the design of the front facade?
Right, yes, sir. So if the issue is that folks are uncomfortable with that design, the appropriate route would be to not to deny preliminary approval.
Right. So I guess my response is, I think I have all the information I need to vote.
All right. Alan, do you need any more?
No,
All right.
yeah, I don't know.
I guess it boils down to, Mr. Kincher, if you're ready to vote on the idea as presented.
Okay, I'm finished.
All right.
Okay. Mr. Kenter?
I don't know. Get me.
Okay. Joe?
No.
Okay. Skip?
Yes.
Oh, that didn't work.
That's why, that's
I
kind
don't
of
think
throwing you
that's
under the
why I did
bus.
it.
That's kind of throwing you under the bus.
Alan?
Yes.
Okay. So the elevations and overall look of the building has been approved for preliminary. Would we like to take a vote on final, or would we like to get some more information from Mr. Buck on colors, etc.? I think that's, Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, we would need that for final approval.
So if you do approve it tonight, you can approve it conditional on the colors and signage, come back to you at a later date. If you have, I would expect to request that if you have as many open items for final as you do for preliminary, then maybe we come back and address them all at once, rather than designing it in real time at the meeting. Final approval would be for the materials, the finishes, the lighting, that sort of thing.
Well, we're not, I'm not ready for that, I'll tell you.
I think it is going to need to be refined in order to pull it off. You know what I mean?
Well, what part of it's refined, Alan? Are you talking about design type things?
Yeah, like what you normally do during construction documents, figure it out, and because it's even though it's a computer drawing, it's an idea sketch, right?
So what refined information would you like to receive from the applicant before you can give final approval?
Just our normal stuff.
Schedule of finishes, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that you're really going to want to put it out there at the edge of the roof overhang. I think once they refine it it'll get better. Stuff like, you know,
Ryan, does that make sense to you? Are you following what he's looking for here?
Yeah, I mean, I can provide a schedule of finishes. Alan, if you prefer that quote unquote parapet wall to be more within the plane of the building and not outbound on the overhang, that's really not a big deal. So we can change that if you'd rather see it different there. But I can definitely do a schedule of finishes and materials. That's not an issue at all.
yeah, I think once they look at it and figure, and, you know, do section 2 there and figure out how the material is going to turn the corners and how everything comes together, it'll, you know, that information will just be there
Right.
as part of CD.
And the
you
front
know,
elevation's the biggest concern, right? So I can kind of detail the front elevation a little further, basically.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, your stair over there looks to be pretty much,
Well, it's consistent with the
Simple
other
and-
set, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's got on the elevations, it has the railing of the one that you sent, right?
Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah, so that thing, I mean, that's, I don't think there's any question as to what that side stairs gonna be, and the back stuff's pretty simple, and the back decks just match. I mean, I guess they'll add some detail, but they're probably matching those columns, whatnot, and the trim band and all that
Yeah.
back in there.
Okay, so we will wait for those refined drawings and schedule of finishes and materials for our next meeting in February. And the board does not wish to take a vote on final review with any conditions tonight, correct?
I think that's correct.
Okay. I think we could do a motion for adjournment if the board is comfortable with that.
Well, are there any other staff comments or anything else?
I just want to say thank you guys for your patience, the way we broke this down on the agenda. I think as we got into the discussion, you see why we thought it was maybe a little bit more for a single pass. Also, just to welcome Katie again and let you guys know that I'm encouraging her to forge as different a path as possible from my operating procedures. And so as we go forward, any adjustments, the way you like these meetings run, the agendas, the minutes, the communication with staff, all those things, any fault you find with the way I did it, please be sure to provide that to Katie so she can adjust and go forward.
Or any adjustments you would like me to make. I am open for feedback. You will not hurt my feelings. I'm a tough cookie, so you guys can have open conversations with me and do like some adjustments going forward.
If I could just add a comment here that, two things. First of all, Aaron was always pretty cognizant of the fact that some of us aren't as talented with dialing through our phones to bring up diagrams. We always had copies to review too. I was able to lean over to Ryan sometimes or whomever and say, I'm not sure which elevation this applies to, what we're talking about. If you could either have something like that up on the screen
Yes,
for us
sir.
to look at where
Definitely.
whoever's making the case could say, that's this one, it's easier to follow. That's just one observation. The second observation before we adjourn is that the third Monday next month is President's Day. Are you guys celebrating closing the offices? Are we
We are.
gonna leave it at that, or are you gonna move the?
Yeah, we don't observe President's Day here at the city.
Okay, so that will be the next regularly scheduled meeting is in February on Monday, the 15th, I think it is. Because the first is, I think,
15th, yes, sir.
yeah, February 15th is the next meeting. Okay. That's all I particularly have. Any other open comments, board members, guys? Do you have anything you want to bring up before we have a motion to adjourn?
I'm good.
Good here.
Okay. Ryan, do you have any comments as a
Nope.
board member you want to make? Aaron, you're good?
I'm good, thank you guys.
Yep,
Can I
thank
get
you.
a motion to adjourn?
Nice to meet you, Katie. See
Seconded.
you later.
All in favor, yeah.
Thank you. It was nice to meet everyone.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks, guys. Joe, hope that's iced tea I see you drinking. I'm a little jealous because I know what's in that glass.
Aaron, you can
Yeah,
stop.
that's iced tea.
Yeah.